Hi, this is Tim and Joel,
Welcome to Midwest Hunting and Outdoors by Two Dumbasses,
a podcast about the outdoors, hunting, and
and being a steward of the land. Welcome to Midwest Hunting and Outdoors by Two Dumbasses. Tim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joel. It's been a while since we've done an episode, so I'm excited to get back into it.
Yeah, we were on a grind there for a while. Pretty ambitious pace.
We sure will.
But with hunting season here, things have slowed down, and certainly, podcasts no different than that.
That's right.
Tim, I see you are wearing some hot apparel today. What are we talking about?
Well, so we've made quite a few advances in our apparel selection, JJ. We've got T-shirts, as we know. You're sporting a Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirt. We've got some nice apparel, and it's got our emblem on the front as well as on the back. We've got these handy dandy new hats. Really love them. I mean, these they've got our logo on here, plus they've got the American flag. Really a great little hat. And then we also have some koozies coming. Is that right?
We do have some koozies on order. I think we'll be in the koozie business here in a week or so. So Halloween.
That's right. So really, and to our listeners, really appreciate the support they've given us so far. This is a way you can help us kind of keep going, is to help just defray some of our costs, because we do have costs when we go out to visit people, whether it be in Boone, Iowa, or down in Kansas City, and then just to keep our equipment up to par with our competitors. So.
Yeah, and not only that, it just looks damn good. And
Yeah.
if you want to be a good-looking guy or gal out there and want to wear some, kick-ass, dumbass stuff, this is where you got to go.
Yeah, really love these hats,
Yeah.
I tell you.
Hats are good. I tell you what, these are warm. In fact, I'm going to unzip it a little bit because it's cooking in here in the cabin today.
So we should probably talk about how do you get this apparel. So right now, probably the best way we're working on an online system, but the best way to say you want to order this is contact us. Contact us on our email, and that's midwesthuntingandoutdoors @gmail.com. And we'll work with you on color, size, etc., and then we'll figure out the financial piece. So that's the best way at this point.
And I would just say, worst case scenario, if you can't remember the email address, it's also in the episodes, et cetera, but you can always use those comments to get a hold of us. We'll definitely follow up with you.
Excellent.
But good stuff. Very nice, very nice. And I'll include some pictures of this in the video when this video comes up, some close-up pictures and et cetera. So if you are interested in our apparel, it goes to a good cause, and it's just damn good-looking stuff. But let's talk about what you've been up to. It's been, probably let's say a couple weeks since we've talked.
Yeah, so it's really, when we get to this time of year, it's a race to winter, as we've talked before. So I've been waiting for the crops to get out. So the corn crops my crops were all in corn, so they're all out. And so I had this 7 acres down below that I wanted to plant in winter rye. And so I planted 2 acres of that with a broadcast planter, but then my Moultrie broadcast planter ended up shelling out the motor, second one. I'll leave it at that. You draw your own inferences. And so probably 3 weeks ago, I bought a grain drill, and I bought it up in northern Minnesota, a 70-year-old McCormick grain drill.
Nice.
And so it needs a little work, but for the most part, it's in pretty decent condition for a 70-year-old planter. And anyway, so since my broadcast planter shelled out, I ended up using the grain drill. And first time I'd ever seen a grain drill was when I bought this one. So to give you an idea about my level of expertise. But through some grease and some WD-40, it worked pretty good. I planted 5 acres without any issues. Went really slow. And that went great. I'm pretty excited about that, actually. Let's see what else we've been doing. And then lastly, I've gotten in a couple hunts. I've gone out twice. We have this cold front coming through. Pretty hopeful. But my neighbor's crops are still in. So I would say what I've seen has been pretty limited.
Yeah. We've been hunting 4 or 5 outings to 3 or 4 hours, mostly in the afternoon, and it's been pretty tough. Tough being just not seeing a whole lot, and but it is getting that time of year. When this episode comes out, it'll be at Halloween or maybe even a little past Halloween, and I am seeing a little more buck activity on my trail cameras, which is good. And the wife brought home the bacon over the weekend. She shot a deer over the weekend. So
nice.
In fact, after the episode today, I'll be processing that meat. So
excellent.
One of the things that I'll be working on.
Good.
Anything else going on in your life?
No, that's it. I'm just I'm waiting for the neighbor's crops to get out, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't get it. Crops go in early and they still come out late. I'm not sure how that way. It's been dry and it's been windy, and you would think
they should be dry.
Yeah, losing money, I think, but it is. You can't control it.
Nope,
cannot control it.
Nope.
Well, for me, couple things going on. I've already talked about the hunting side of this. We're fortunate enough to be at the cabin. We have the cabin. We were here from last Thursday all the way through the weekend, so it was nice to be in the cabin for 4 or 5 days straight and not have to deal with anything in the outside world except for hunting, which was nice. My oldest son got married over the weekend, so congrats,
awesome.
Justin and Lindsay. Lindsay, welcome to the Dumbass family. And so I'm excited for those guys starting their lives and in the Midwest and on their honeymoon right now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a big weekend. The coronavirus thing obviously throws some wrinkles in it, but it was a great ceremony. Very small, very personable, and very proud of those guys.
Yeah, beautiful couple.
Yeah, thank you. Again, brings us to this episode, which is about securing our property. And we're going to talk about the 400-pound gorilla in the room in a little different way. So we're going to use this acronym, and we're going to kind of model the show on this APE acronym. APE. And the APE stands for A for assets. How do you secure your assets? P is how do you secure your perimeter? And E is how do you secure your entrance to your property?
Okay.
And let's just have some dialogue around that, and then that's how the flow of the conversation will go. Now, we certainly understand that there is, wide ranges when we talk about property. It could be, farmland. It could be houses, tractors, a wide range of things out there. But we'll try to cover as much as we can.
Sure.
And try to relate it to, what we own from a property standpoint. But again, as always, we would love to hear, your comments and what you've done to secure your property.
Yeah, the comments we get from our listeners will really help build on this topic in particular.
Yeah, we would love it. There's tons of things that are, that we're not going to get to today that I know people have ideas around. So we'd love to get that and include that in the episode.
Okay.
So let's start with the APE. A for assets. So let's say you do have a property. On this property, you've got assets which could include deer stands, hunting huts, Could have a cabin on it. It could have tractors.
Grain drills.
Could have a home on it.
Yeah.
Right? Grain drills. Right? Exactly. 70-year-old McCormick grain drills. Perfect. What are some of the things that people should be thinking about, and what can you do to protect those assets?
Well, I mean, so when we think about protecting, there's a thought on, hey, locking things up, right, or deterrence, right? So that's kind of how I think about it. And there's certain things that are in my house that are very expensive, or would be hard to replace, and I want to lock those types of things up. And then I think there's another. Because I think it's tough to prevent at the end anybody. If somebody wants to steal something, they're going to get it, right? Or for that matter, if they want to vandalize something, they're going to vandalize it. So how do we set it up to deter? So I think safes are one thing for your valuables. And then when we start to get into whether it be your ATVs or et cetera, I think you want to make sure that you don't leave your keys in those pieces of equipment, like in your tractor or in your ATVs, etc. I've heard of people that leave their keys in their ATVs and they wake up the next morning and they're gone. And how are you going to find that?
Yeah, I'm just the look on my face here is as we're sitting in the cabin. I could do a lot better job of that.
Right.
Let's just leave it at that. But
and particularly like a tractor, if you leave your keys in your tractor, now they've got an industrial or a commercial grade mechanism that they can use at their leisure to get access to other things.
Yes, as in breaking in things, right?
Yep.
And from a vandalism standpoint, certainly. And there's probably some, personal risk, personal liability if someone would break into it and roll a tractor and get injured or whatever. And who knows what the laws are on that, right?
Yep, that's right.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm Tim, on assets. And to me, this plays into the E in our APE because I think it's how easily you can access through entrance.
Yep.
To get to these access. So I think we'll double down on that. But I think there's two strategies that I try to incorporate. One is either, if I can't hide it in plain sight, and I'll come back to that, then how can I secure it? If that's locking it, removing keys, putting it in a safe, whatever that would be. And so I think locking things up is pretty plain and simple. But, there's tons of things that is it better to have a safe there and someone breaks in and knows that there's something in that safe, and can they break into the safe or steal the safe and away it goes? Or would it be better to have those things hidden in common ordinary things that you only know where they're at?
That's true.
And I keep the example I'll use that I don't apply, but I think it makes sense, is we've probably seen, pop cans, fake pop cans or whatever, that screw off and you can put valuables inside the pop can and screw the lid on and keep the pop can in the freezer, or keep it with the rest of your pop. And who's gonna, if you're stealing something, who's gonna go and look through all the pop cans to find stuff? So
and I've seen they apply that same type of logic and ideas towards even firearms. They build these hideaway shelves that now I don't apply those, but you basically touch them and they have a locking mechanism, and you push it and boom, out comes the shelf and whatever firearms you had stored in there.
If you watch any Bruce Willis or shows on on TV, yes, that's a perfect example, right? Hiding guns underneath tables and things like that. Again, I don't apply that, but so the strategy is security is one option, or can I secure it by hiding it in plain sight? It is kind of how I approach things, and I've seen other people approach their assets.
And I also build on that. So I have kind of a boneyard for where I try to hide my assets, whether it be my trailers, tractor, and some of my other pieces of equipment, it's deep within my property. So to get to it, you got to get through a lot of my property to get there, and there's a good chance you're going to get seen.
Yeah, I mean, another strategy, I think what you're bringing up is, out of sight, out of mind, right? The
Sure.
less temptation. The old saying is you can resist anything but temptation. So if you're driving by this road and it's black and there's no lights on, and you see an ATV parked out there, and the keys are in it, month after month after month. I mean, someone's going to be tempted on that, right?
We have a little Pence fly that's flying around. I don't know if you see that.
Well, let's not bring up politics. We'll be here for 4 hours, right? So, is that what that was in the debate? When
He had a little fly on his head that erupted social media.
Bad timing, right?
Don't talk about the issues. Let's talk about the fly.
If I could be a fly on the wall, right? Anything else on property, Tim, that we should talk about? I'm sorry, assets. About assets.
Oh, you know what? There's the FBI throws out a piece. I mean, if you want to register with the FBI, they have a system to where it's a 10-digit unique code to you. And then what they'll do is give you these stickers that you can put on your property, whether it be a piece of equipment, et cetera, but it's all associated to you. And now when you take these stickers, you're not going to stick them right where everybody can see them. You put them in very unique places, right? And so if somebody ever were to take your equipment, these stickers are already on there. And when they find those stickers, they can correlate it right to you.
That's interesting. So, I mean, just Google what FBI?
FBI OAN.
OAN.
Yeah, it's in. Gosh, I'm trying to remember exactly what they call that. Owner applied numbers is what they call it. Wow. And so, I mean, if you have a lot of assets, I mean, that might be something that you want to look into.
Yeah. So I think that's I've never heard of that, but I like that concept. I'm sure, there's some people out there from a government standpoint that don't like that idea. But, the other thing is I have, I think signage goes a long way. I believe that, if I sign, hey, video, this is under video surveillance. Again, we're going to talk about entrance in a little bit. Trying to make it as hard as you can for people to deal or steal your assets is what I try to do. Even in the world of trail cameras nowadays, cell trail cameras are getting like $100
cheap,
or even less.
Yep.
Boy, that might be a good fit for some folks. If not that, my philosophy is as cheap as trail cameras are, I may not catch someone stealing, but I'm gonna try to get as much photography evidence as I can.
That's right.
I want them to pay for the problems that they've created. So, some things about that. I'm just looking at my notes here. Signage, cameras we talked about, and then there's a lot of solar technology. Going back to your episode on the solar diffuser for your pond, but man, just dirt cheap, simple, motion-activated solar lights.
That's right. Yeah,
can go a long ways.
Lighting, I think, is super important, particularly in the evening, right, or at night, so that, hey, first off, if you do have cameras, you're going to have a whole lot better picture if you have some lighting out there. Second of all, thieves and vandals, I mean, we're getting back to that deterrence, right? I mean, that's why the signage is there. And, also going back to, there are I guess I'm moving more into entrance, but there's ways to make people know where your property lines are.
Absolutely.
And these signs are one of them. We'll talk more about that later.
Well, maybe that's a good transition point. So let's go in. So that's the A of APE, right? Assets. let's go into the P for property and protecting that. What comes to mind when you think about securing those items?
Well, certainly fencing. Fencing's something that's important. I don't know if you're familiar with the right-hand rule. If you were to have 100 yards of fencing, let's say, if you were to go to the middle as you look at your fence, you are responsible for the 50 yards to your right, and your neighbor would be responsible that your property butts up to is responsible for maintaining that fence. And what I've seen is there's a lot of fences that aren't being maintained. And so I think maintaining your fence, working with your neighbors is a good way to secure your property. And again, so people know where their property lines. I like to believe that, most people, high 90%, high 99% probably, are good people and don't want to violate those boundary lines. So if you have fences there, they're less likely to do that. Another one is signage, as you talked about, making sure you see signs. I know there's some states that actually have a color code system, and I know Montana has a different color. I think Missouri has a different color, and rather than go into what those colors are, I think it's important that you find out what the color is for your state, and you can take your fence posts and just simply paint them, and so people know that those are property lines.
Yeah. Let me just interject if I can on
Sure.
fencing. The right-hand rule, as far as we know, that's kind of an Iowa thing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if where else that applies, or it makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
I've only had to deal with it once with a neighbor, and it was the first time I had heard about that. But it's simple and it works, and it makes a lot of sense. It just makes a lot of sense. And then the color coding piece. My philosophy on my boundary or my fence line. I've got areas on my property that are fenced and are fenced well, and then I've got other areas that there may not be any fence. In the majority area, there's like an old fence, like 1940, 50 fence, 50, 60, 70 years old.
Sure.
Might be able to find a fence post or even some wire where it was at as a good guideline. But my philosophy is we're still 5 years into our property. We're still trying to properly sign our boundaries. One, it's especially in the dark. It's pretty easy to get lost yourself.
Sure.
I'll just speak for myself. And then two is, if I need to confront someone about property line issues, someone's on my property and I'm going to address them about it, I want to be as confident as I can that they have no excuse of not knowing they're on someone's property.
Sure.
Other than their own.
Another let's building on that is from you get to your property boundaries is I've also been embarking and putting in like shrubbery around around my fence rows. So again, it's more of a deterrence. It's just, who wants to get over a fence and jump into a shrub, right? So I've been planting around some of mine aronia berries. Aronia berries are great. It's a great little, or choke cherry, I guess people also call them, but it's a very healthful berry. But so I plant it for myself, but I'm also planting it on these hedgerows or on these fence rows so that, hey, it's going to be a deterrent. And I'm going to continue that along my fence rows, so it just becomes difficult to cross. Unless, of course, it's an area where I want a deer to cross, and that's a whole nother discussion.
And you want to make it as easy as you can for it to cross, right? Deer or turkey. Let's not discriminate here, right? But, yeah, that's smart. And you know what? My guess is a lot of that fits into, your habitat plan. Going back to the Kevin Anderson episode of the Two Dumbasses earlier on this year, and it certainly could fit into that habitat plan.
Sure.
Yeah, neat. And I know I mentioned trail cameras earlier when we were talking about assets, but boy, on my perimeters, I do some surveillance using trail cameras. Some of it is good hunting practice for hunting, but some of it is equally as much for surveillance of people taking advantage of my property lines or crossing those property lines.
Absolutely. I use trail cameras extensively. I think my number's up to 19 trail cameras that are out there. So
Yeah, I mean,
you might find a couple of them.
yeah, you're not going to find 19, especially if you're slopping around in the dark, right, or at dusk when the flash doesn't go off. Plus, you need that many trail cameras just because you lose one or two. Yep. On average, I have one or two that malfunction every year, and then,
Sure.
Then I have to go and buy two more.
That's right.
That's right. Anything else on property boundaries?
No, I think we covered it. I think for right now.
Yeah.
Like we said, I'd be interested in understanding what some of our listeners are doing, and I'd invite them to leave a comment.
Yeah, and I love the color coding idea that you had brought up. I did a little research for Iowa and couldn't find anything. I know, or I was told by a realtor, that purple is the boundary color for Missouri. Mm-hmm. But again, I'd love to hear from our listeners on what color code, if there is one that exists for some of the states, including Iowa or Minnesota or Wisconsin, whatever. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep,
certainly would help. But okay, well, let's move on to the E that makes our ape, and that's the entrance. So. What are your thoughts and strategies around entrance to your properties?
So I think gates are pretty effective. You have manual gates that are reasonably priced. I do believe, though, if you have a manual gate, it's pretty easy to only use it when you're going to be gone. And then what greater signal are you sending to people that, hey, they're not here, right? So I think if you go the gate option from an entrance perspective, you're going to need something that's probably, and I hate to say it's probably a little more expensive, and something that's more automatic, right? So that you're using that gate all the time. It's easy to use, and it just sends the message to people that, hey, they're willing to spend the money on security to secure their property.
Yeah, again, I think it's a great point that you make. I think it falls into the theme of, you want to be as consistently inconsistent as you can. So you don't send messages when you are there or when you're not there.
Yep.
And gates are probably the easiest thing, that does send that message. Geez, it's closed. So, Joel or Tim must not be home, so let me do some investigation here, right? Or it's open. They're there. But I am a true believer that, again, human nature is pretty lazy. If you can make it hard for they have to walk or cross a fence or break something down to get on your property through an entrance versus drive an ATV or a horse or a car or truck, you're going to eliminate 9 out of 10 folks out there.
I agree.
So I'm with you. So what kind of gate, what kind of gates have you seen?
Well, so I think the gates that I had were basically on a post, and you basically swing them, put a chain around them, and you lock them up. And there's all kinds of those that you can buy. I know you use a gate, right, with a chain lock on it.
Yeah, I would consider mine like a cattle gate. I don't know what else you would call it, but we'll take some pictures and include it in this episode. But mine is what I'm calling a cattle gate. That you'd see on a farm. 2 of them actually, to make sure it's wide enough. The neighbor actually uses cable.
Yeah, I've
like
seen that.
Steel cable. Honestly, if I would have seen that or known about it, I probably would have went that route. It's a little less inexpensive, and I think provides some benefits.
Same purpose.
It's still going to be. You're not going to drive a vehicle through there, but a little easier to jump over and go. But no big deal. And then I've seen nothing.
Yeah.
I've seen no gates at all, and I think that's just an invitation for problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else on the entrance?
So I think surveillance and cameras, as we talked about. I mean, I don't have a problem telling people I have a security system, pretty extensive security system in my property, but I also have cameras that are out. They're out in plain view. You can't get to them; they're super high up, and as soon as you're in view, it turns on and it lets you know it's got you.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think there's something to be said about, hey, if I come in the dark, when again my place has lights, uh, you're going to see those cameras come on. It's a good deterrence, right? And going back to lighting, I mean, we at night, if you drive around, you see all different types of farm lighting that are out there. They call on these telephone poles.
Yeah.
I forget what they call those, but I think those are a worthy investment. I mean, if I'm out going to commit a crime, whether it be vandalism or theft, I see that as probably not my top of my list.
Yeah, I think light goes a long way. If that's solar lighting or motion detection light, or just as you said, just a farm light on a pole, goes a long way. I again, trail cameras come to mind for me on my entrance. In fact, I've heard people taking a little bit further, and I've contemplated taking a little bit further. Well, they will save their old trail cameras that don't work and kind of use it as a decoy. So they'll set one up in pretty plain sight that doesn't work, but it looks like it's taking pictures, and they'll have another one that is off to the side taking the real pictures and getting all the info and data. I thought that was pretty smart and intuitive.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I got to go into. It's a little political, but I'm not going to pick a party or a candidate. But I saw a picture of somebody that had this political sign out, and it doesn't really matter who it was for. And on the back side of it, they had mouse traps. Mouse traps glued to the side, so that whoever was going to come and take that sign was going to get a little surprise.
That's funny. That's funny. Cool. So that's 8 assets, perimeter, and entrance. Anything you would add to that? Any final comments that we haven't covered? Again, pretty broad bulldozing look at this, but I think some good dialogue.
Yeah, really. I mean, there's some topics we didn't cover on purpose today. We didn't cover about financial information and protecting that. We didn't talk about your individual well-being from a security perspective on that. Those are probably topics all in themselves. But I think for what we targeted today in securing your property, I think this is right on.
Yeah, I think the thing we talked about before production here today that I think is forefront in my mind is just having good neighbors, and the work and the time it takes to develop those relationships with your neighbors. And neighbors, if it's a rural setting or if it's a suburban setting, I mean, neighbors can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, good ad. And I was just thinking about this, and like you and I have also talked about theft and vandalism, but another thing about it, protecting your property also, don't rule out fire risk. I think it's important that I'll tell you a quick little dumbass story. I was out. I had my boat, I had my tractor, and my car sitting in the yard. Our yard's fairly large, and I had went and was burning some recycled material, some recycling, some cardboard, etc. And then I wanted to run to town and run some errands. Now it was windy, but not like super windy. I'd say 5-7 miles an hour, and in the middle of summer, probably a drought. And so,
might or might not have been a drought, right?
so after I got everything burned, I threw a 5-gallon bucket of water on it, and I'm thinking, oh, that's good, you know. And I walked away, and anyway, I went and ran my errands. I was gone probably, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour. And I came back, and I've got a fairly long drive, and I'm down in a little valley. So at the bottom of the hill, I can't even see my property, my house, and I see smoke. And I'm like, oh, there shouldn't be smoke, you know. So I gun my truck up, and I get to the top of the hill, and my whole yard is on fire, and it's going down into a valley of all prairie grass, and it's on fire. And on both sides of that valley is crops. And I'm thinking to myself, I am in deep doo-doo, you know. And so I get out there. My wood pile's all on fire. And fortunately for me, I had 200 foot of hose already hooked up to my spigot. And but in that situation, I mean, do you think you can get it, or do you know you can get it? And at that point, I kind of thought I could get it, but I wasn't sure. And
The fire,
you know, and get it put out. So I did the 911 to make sure that, hey, we had it controlled, because if it got in the crops, boy, we're talking a big problem.
Yeah.
And anyway, so where I was headed with this is so it's clearly a dumbass moment on my part. And I went and got in the meantime, I had a little fire extinguisher, but it's probably one of those little 4 or 5 inch in diameter ones. And let me just tell you, for a listener's perspective, if you ever have to use one of those, that's about 20 seconds of spraying. so I put out my wood pile the best I could, and then from there I used water. And so since then, I now have 50 pounders all through my house, and they're in obvious locations. And I have since learned from that. And so don't forget about, if you want to protect your property, the fire risk.
Yeah, it's probably a bad feeling when you came down the driveway and saw that smoke and saw what was going on.
Oh, yeah, it was feet away from my boat and tractor. If those tires would have gone, I was like it would have been bad.
I think if you would have just stopped for a sandwich or something and gave it another half hour, it would have been toast.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, good learning.
Yep.
Good learning. Yeah, I was going to say that's probably about the same feeling when you forget to put the plug in your boat and you're out in the middle of the lake and find some water, but that's a story for another time, right?
Yeah.
What, anything else in closing here, Tim?
No, I think we've done it.
Yeah, and again, we're not intending that we know everything, and that we certainly have covered all the bases, because we certainly haven't just scratched the surface here. However, we wanted to get people thinking about it, get it out there, and then more importantly, we've said it many times, we'd love to hear from our audience here on how they approach securing their property, and what techniques, or if there's things that we haven't touched on that we could share with our followers.
Yeah. So the one thing I'd like to ask is our listeners, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then also wherever you get your audio podcasts.
Yeah, we're really looking, get that subscription level up there, and we need your help with that. So, but as always, we close with be safe, have fun,
and get outdoors.
Thanks for listening or watching our show. We have some exciting topics and guests coming up.
We ask that you subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
We look forward to hearing your suggestions for topics,
questions, and comments. This is Two Dumbasses signing off. Until next time,
be safe,
have fun, and get outdoors.